start. If anybody messages us that sound, I'll let you know. Thank you.
I'm calling to order the July 2nd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Notice is hereby given pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Vernon and Civil Statute Article 6252-17. The city of Smithville will conduct a planning and zoning meeting on July 2nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the council chambers located at 317 Main Street, Smithville, Texas. My name is Garrett Gutierrez. I'm the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves, starting on my right, your left.
Lee Kilgore.
Caroline Noya.
Nancy Catherman.
Philip Slaughter. Sorry.
The first item on the agenda is discussion and action on the approval of the minutes from June 4th. Philip and myself were not there, so does anybody have any questions or any concerns with the minutes?
Make a motion that we approve those. Oh, sorry. I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the June 4th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mhm.
Yes. Passes unanimously. Next item, discussion and action on a special use permit request for a guest house at 801 Bishop Street, property ID 21476, Baker Addition, Block A, Lot 8, property owner Jason K. Shackelford. We have anybody signed up to speak?
Yes. Yes, I do. I have Mr. Pace Davis.
If you don't mind, introduce yourself and
That work? Okay. My name is Pace Davis. I live at 707 Bishop. I am Jason's neighbor across 8th Street. So I just wanted to come by to give my support for his special use permit. He's an incredible neighbor, kind of the ideal neighbor. His mom Holly is wonderful as well. And that's who's going to live in the house. And so just wanted to say that I gladly support him updating that building for her to live in. Thank you.
thank you. That's it. Is there any discussion that we need to have up here amongst ourselves? I do have one question myself.
Just so you know, Mr. Shackelford is here if you need to speak with him as well.
And I think this is more of maybe a Robert question. If he can answer it. It may be a Tracy question too. I know that the house and everything that's there was before the rules and it's grandfathered in without off-street parking. If we make this a dwelling, will it need off-street parking, and is there plans for that? One question for y'all and one question for them, maybe.
Let's let Mr. Shackelford give his presentation and he may answer those questions before I make my statement.
You just push the button. Oh, it's working. Yeah, thank you guys for letting me come here. But right now, we're just parking on the side, I guess, of the road as it is. So it's just me and my mother that live there. So I don't know, do we need any other parking for two vehicles?
No.
Yes, if you have a guest house requirement, you'd have to have off-street parking. This is the same thing you did with 801 Tiger Lane. So this is no different. Although it was pre-existing non-conforming use, as you bring it into a new use, you have to comply with the rules.
So could we just, when I bought, it was 801 and a half. We had two addresses at the same property. Could we just make a driveway next to the house? I mean, how does that actually work?
All right, I don't mean be speaking for y'all, but your property, you have a garage
Yes.
right there. That
Mhm.
could be your off-street parking. You would pull into that, the person could pull into that space and could be your off-street parking.
That's what he's making into the apartment.
That's, yeah.
Or
Oh, my bad.
requesting to-
Well,
Yeah.
you have concrete leading up to that.
No,
I thought you did. Okay, my bad.
no, it's okay. There's just grass.
Yeah, be the only concern that I would have and would question where that would be at. And yes, as long as it's off the right of way of the street, then it would be considered off-street parking.
Okay. I wonder where the person before parked.
Well, before,
So it's been grandfathered in. So
Oh,
the house and everything was built prior to the rules. And as Robert was stating, you're changing that into a dwelling and then it falls underneath the new rules for, so.
it's first time for me. So. Well, just, I guess, let me know. We'll do whatever, but I'm just trying to provide her a place to live. She's sick.
I have a question. It looks like this is the metal garage and then the yellow is where the structure is for the special use permit, correct?
I'm trying.
Let's see here.
Isn't that right?
The yellow is,
Yeah, it was
let's see here.
This is the metal garage.
Yes, that's it. That's the metal garage.
This is the metal garage. And the yellow is what you'll be adding on to it?
Yes, yes, sir. That's the addition.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm to which plans? These ones right here?
Building plans that show.
These building plans right here?
Sorry, he has, Mr. Shackelford has building plans. One more there. So that shows the outline of the metal garage. It looks to me like the deck, the kitchen, and then the side deck are additional
Right.
to your metal garage. And that the entire garage structure is going to become a one-bedroom apartment
Yes,
for
ma'am.
your mother under the special use permit.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And so if you, sorry, Tracy, if you go back to the original plat with the yellow lights for 3-foot setback. So the requirement is a 3-foot setback along the property line. However, you grandfathered in when you bought the property so that the metal garage, if it stays put, is grandfathered in, does not need to move. However, you've already discussed with city to the deck comes in 3 feet from
I believe the fence line.
North 8th Street.
Mhm.
And then the back fence line, you're coming in 3 feet before you put that deck. So that's how you conform to the new standards. The only thing that hasn't been addressed is parking.
Okay.
Got it? And so if your structure is on the property line, where does parking, does he park in front of his house?
Right now, I mean, him and I had lots of email communication. I was under the impression it was a list of here's all the things, we've met all the things. And when we talked about parking was to already be accommodated. And that's why there wasn't a variance to be asked for the off-street parking because it could be, if it wasn't there, it could be made on the property. There wasn't a variance needed because he was able to provide it when him and I had our discussion.
Additionally, when I went by the property to look at it, you have parking already along 8th Street
Mhm.
at an angle and it seems to work. So, and there were 2 cars
Yes,
that I saw. So I'm thinking, I can't speak for you, but I think that that meets the requirement. 2 houses, 2 parking spaces based on size. No, that's not it. Never mind.
And you have 2 more buildings in the back.
Well, one more. Yes, I have 3 total. My house, the garage, and then a little shack in the back.
Okay, one looks like it's wooden,
Yes, ma'am.
and I think there's, looks like there's an electricity is attached.
There is to all 3 buildings. From my understanding from the previous owner, that little shack was a chicken house they used it for a chicken house.
Oh,
So
so-
it's nice chicken house.
he had electricity.
Yeah. And a bathroom. So
Okay,
you guys just let me know what I need to do and,
and your mother doesn't drive.
well, she planned on coming. She wasn't feeling too good, but she does drive.
She does drive. So there would be an additional car there
Well, it's just us 2 cars total.
with hers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you all.
Okay, I make a motion that we grant I haven't done this for a while. Special use permit request for a guest house at 801 Bishop Street, property ID 21476, Baker Edition, Block A, Lot 8, property owner Jason K. Shackelford.
I've got a motion. Do we get a second? Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I need to add one caveat to make sure Mr. Shackelford knows. You have to have the same utility connection. You know, you can't have two separate connections. So I just want to make sure that the Planning and Zoning Commission and those listening, the guest houses have to tie
That,
into your main. Okay.
that and it's his responsibility. Permits paid every year.
Yeah.
Yes, and we've had email communication. We went, yeah, so it's a lot of information, but you can refer back, so.
So that'll go in front of the council next week on the 8th. Next agenda item. Make sure I got the right one. Discussion and action on a replat 2 lots into one at 406 Burn Street. Property ID 16760, Burn Addition. Block 106, lots 1 and 2, property owners Daniel and Ryan Fowler. We have anybody signed up to speak?
No, no one from the public is signed up for or against item number 4. But Mr. Fowler is here.
I do see Mr. Fowler. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Mr. Fowler?
I'll ask, but I think I have an idea of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You've got 2 lots that I believe there used to be trailers or mobile homes on it.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
So you want to make them into one lot? Or is it a replat?
Yes, ma'am. We're gonna build a total slab is 4,000 square feet home on that property.
Just one home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But it will be across what is a property line today.
That's correct. Yep.
And will it face Burn?
Yes, ma'am. That's, from what I can tell, that's the direction that all of the other homes.
Yeah.
face. And so we wanted to
It-
look and feel like it's, part of the neighborhood. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Thank you.
They had all those mailboxes on the side, right?
Yeah, those were there. Yes, ma'am. Those were there. Yeah, yes. And so I just haven't had a chance. I don't know if there's some kind of regulation where I have to meet to remove those or anything, but yes, those will be removed. And I've been working with I've been in discussions with the city engineer to make sure that so on Burn Street, there used to be a driveway there. 'Cause there's a culvert, water drainage culvert right there. And so once we get the house, situated and determine where, the sidewalk to the front door will be,
Get you where we're
in
at.
discussions with them to see if we can accommodate, moving that over. And I understand there'll be costs associated with that, but just to make it look nice, so,
It's gonna be a single family home.
oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the replat, combining 2 lots into 1 lot at 406 Burn. Property ID 16760, Burn Addition, block 106, lots 1 and 2, property owner Daniel and Ryan Fowler. Second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Ayes unanimous. That will be in the next week's meeting as well, Daniel, the,
Thank you.
all right. The next agenda item, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all very similar. Is anybody signed up to speak on those?
No, sir, we do not have anybody signed up to speak, but Mr. Don Barker is here.
So we'll start with number 5, discussion and action on the front yard setback variance 19 foot 7 inch instead of 25 at 111 Cali Street, M5 subdivision. Property owner Don Barker Homes. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Barker on that one in particular?
I do. Thank you. What I wanted to find out The initial plat for these 5 houses, are we going to take them one at a time?
Yeah, we should take them one at a time.
Okay.
I think a lot of questions that are asked on the first one could possibly answer your questions on the other 4. But yes, we'll take them one at a time just to make sure there's not specifics, since some of them are different on the variance setback number.
Okay. Can you roll to the first? So on address 111 Cali Street, when you initially went to get a survey for the house to be built, the setbacks that are identified in the zoning ordinance, you intended to meet those setbacks, front yard, side yard, and backyard. What happened to get to this point that our setbacks weren't, when it was actually formed that we're not meeting the setback in the front yard?
Truthfully, and Arab slap meant the slap people, stood up to face and everything, it happened. I'm not, that's the only thing what I am doing, I have 12 more lots out there and I want to build, a lower price range house to meet the economy here now. And what I'm gonna do then, like I used to, I'll have the pins for the corners for the set before the forms are done. And, you know, I took it for granted. The slab guy was the guy that built the subdivision, okay? And so, you know, it happened. There's no excuse.
Excuse me, could you just speak up a little?
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. I can't say anything about it, it just happened. There were 5 of them. Those first 3 houses on Cali, they're actually, the slab got moved for them because they had resurveyed those from 5 lots to add a lot and made them narrower. And so, they moved it for them. But, when they did, and, it was missed by everybody. City inspector, everybody, we all was there, so,
Who moved the form?
ma'am.
Who moved the form? When they
Oh, what happened was, if you look on Cali, on that left side there, the lots were 85 feet wide and it cut them down to 60 feet wide. So there'd be one extra lot. As the people did subdivision, 230. And so Adam and Wayne, his father, they're the one who built the subdivision. Adam was doing the slabs. It just, I assumed wrong. I mean,
So were the slabs all poured at the same time, or was the house done and then the garages?
basically, they poured 5 a day when they poured them.
But the whole thing, garage and house?
Oh, yes, ma'am, everything's poured, but they had pump trucks, they poured everything. And I think because of the, part of the problem was, I'm not saying the city has a sidewalk 3 foot in front. That might have caused part of the problem, but just really, I have no reason. I just noticed on 2 of these though, I think the deal they have, the survey shows it only catching one corner of the garage about a foot. They showing it 6 feet here on the one, 332. Well, we'll just wait to go through them. And stuff.
They're all similar. Similar issues with
The
it.
3 on Cali are red. The 2 on the circles of are just barely catching one side, a corner of the garage. The way it came around the curve.
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm looking at. So that's the only difference. But they violated, they really did. And where I picked it up was when I was putting them on the market, I went ahead and surveyed them all again to have the fences, everything, where if somebody needed a house, want to move in and close, it would be, I had it done. So I did all did everything and see if there was any problem and found this. So that's truthfully what happened. I don't know what else to say.
So I noticed when I was in the subdivision the other night that, and I see that they're advertised as 2-car garages, but they're the smallest 2-car garages I think that can be. And every house except one that's occupied had cars parked in the driveway out front. I pulled into the driveway of a couple of these houses, and if a vehicle is parked there, you're in the sidewalk. Part of your vehicle could be in the sidewalk, depending on the size of the vehicle. Could potentially have ADA compliance issues with that. Do you have any solution for that?
I'm not for sure, to be honest, because there was pickup pulled up there. They had that one that's closest, which is that one right there, actually. They had one of these moving boxes sitting on it, and it was still, it's 18 feet, 20 feet, and it had room between the garage and the box, and it still wasn't on the sidewalk. Now, you couldn't park 2 cars, but I don't know if you can park 2 cars on 25 feet.
Not back to back, no. But the city's requirement for an actual off-street parking space though, and granted, just for everybody, the 2-car garage in theory counts for that, but we got to think about the other vehicles, because like I said, every house had one parked out front, and the city says we need 20 feet for that, for a parking space. So I think it's 8 by 20. So we don't even have that in front of this residence. It's almost there. But that's definitely a concern that I think we need to look at.
And my concern on that was that it might trigger another variance, because the zoning chapter 14, part 3, general development standards, section 3.5, parking and loading, 3.5.1E, size of off-street parking space. The size of the parking space for one vehicle shall consist of a rectangular area having dimensions of not less than 8 feet by 20 feet plus adequate area for ingress and egress. So as we look at the setbacks, it's one thing to approve the variance request for the front yard setback, but it's another thing, and it wasn't requested for a variance on off-street parking.
So I think I'll answer that for you, Lee. I think looking at that, the houses are advertised to have a 2-car garage, and that meets the requirement. Even though the chances of them putting 2 cars inside their garage are slim to none, it's still considered that. So it does that, but I guess what my point was is more than likely they're not gonna squeeze 2 vehicles in there, and then you have one that's sticking out into the sidewalk, potentially, depending on the size of vehicle.
The city streets there are wider than normal too, curbing. There is room to park on the side and have 2 cars drive down there between. They're very wide streets, and they have street lighting and they have curbing. Then you got the 3-foot sidewalk.
I have kind of a general question. How long have you been in the building business?
Actually, it's been a few years. This next group of houses, for the lots, if I do them, I'm having Franklin of Pine River, Fine Home actually do the construction.
So do you consider yourself a builder? Are you,
Builder, yes, ma'am.
you're the builder?
Yes.
All right.
But
So you, for a few years, can you be a little bit more specific?
30 years.
You haven't?
I haven't built homes in over 30 years.
Okay.
I
Um,
got one in November of last year in Bastrop, Tahitian. I was gonna move there and I didn't. So we sold it. I did. And then we did these down here.
So when when you built, when you came back into the building business, did you check out the ordinances that the city has for setbacks? Because this is five or six
I understand.
things, and those setbacks are there for a reason. And I'm not going to go into all that with you. I think you know.
Somebody knew and I shouldn't assumed.
Well, my next question would be is if you're overseeing the building on something like that, when the forms are laid or set out for the cement to be poured, do you come and double check to be sure that you're meeting the criteria in the ordinance?
All I can tell you is I took somebody's word that was doing it down here and stuff, and I did, and maybe I shouldn't have. That's what I said from forward, if I do anything, I'm gonna make sure, which I did before, the form, before the forms go on, that the corners of the house will be pegged so that the forms will know before it's even fit, where you don't have to tear the forms down and redo it. So that's what I used to do. So that's, you know what I mean? That's,
Okay, because this puts a difficult decision before everyone. I mean,
Right.
we've got these homes that are not meeting the setback criteria and they're brand new. We don't want people to think that that's something that anyone can do.
I
We
understand.
have rules, and that's why I asked you some of the questions I did right now.
Well, and see, another thing is, I went ahead and received occupancy from the, approved from the city and everything else too. I just, when I did the deal, because I was going to check, have the fences on there, that's when I picked it up. And I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you truthfully what happened.
Okay,
I don't have much sense in me lying about it.
thank you.
And that was it. I mean, I assumed somebody and took their word, and I shouldn't have. You know, inspections and everything else going through, but that's really all I can say.
Well, I think usually when you are overseeing a project like that and you're kind of like, that's where the buck stops.
That's what I said.
It's,
And so
do the job where you give that.
I did build a good house. The houses are very nice and a lot of upgrades. I mean, I'm actually gonna be building them down. We're setting in the next group if we're gonna do them, if I,
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you.
You have the sign.
Please go ahead and sign in and then we'll bring you up to speak after we finish asking questions. Does anybody else have any questions on agenda item number 5, the 111 Cali Street?
Chairman Gutierrez, I have a question for Mr. Barker. There is an HOA or an architectural committee that's assigned to the subdivision. Is that correct?
no.
Well, a deed restriction, a deed was filed for an HOA for this property when the final plat was
But it's
submitted.
as after the last lot is sold,
Okay.
is when the way it was set up when it's formed.
Where I'm going with this is that the concern is that you're going to have a vehicle that's obstructing the sidewalk. You can address that through your HOA that says you can't park on the sidewalk.
Mhm.
Although you have a 2-car garage that meets the requirement, additional or stricter standards can be imposed through the HOA. And that HOA also indicates that you guys are responsible for the detention pond. So I wanted to give you that piece of information that, you know,
Because
This
all
is-
of these say no HOA. That's why I'm surprised.
Architectural Control Committee, it's called an ACC. Maybe it's not a HOA, but
But it's some kind of regulatory group that will be,
M5 230 LLC submitted,
okay,
you have to go through this committee before you do things to your home.
okay.
Okay, just wanted to offer that as a solution to not blocking the side.
guess technically,
I have another question, but this is for more the city manager. Because I've had several people ask me and I don't really know the answer to the question. What is usually the punishment for like something like this? And I don't think that falls to planning and zoning. I think that falls to the city council. Am I correct? Or? I'm sorry, Robert.
No, that's okay. This is a unique situation, as Mr. Barker has indicated. Yeah, he missed it, but the city missed it too. So I am not,
Who's a professional?
So, yeah, if you don't mind, can we finish asking him his questions? And then I think I have some questions for you as well, too.
certainly.
And then that way we can kind of keep it separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And I'm asking you if you're okay with that. Are you okay with that? Waiting to get those answered after we finish asking all the questions on the lots to Mr. Barker, so we can let him get his seat back.
With his, well, he didn't actually answer my question.
No, he can't. Can we come back to it is what I'm asking.
You will not forget that I asked.
I will not let it, I will not let it be forgotten.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry.
because we have so many of them, and so for the 111 Cali Street, agenda item number 5, is there any more questions on that one for Mr. Barker? You'll need to get up and speak.
Okay, so I do have someone from the public, Miss Lori Herring, who signed up for all the items 5 through 9, and Chair has given her permission to speak.
Okay. Lori Herring.
Lori, and if you don't mind speaking to the microphone, because there's people watching out on the interwebs.
Thank you. Okay, I have a client in this house.
Speak up, please.
I have a client in this house. And when we found out about this problem, we asked, was there a pre-pour inspection done? It's for this property. Does the city do a pre-pour inspection? Yes. So we missed it there. Then we missed it also when they gave the certificate of occupancy. We have an 84-year-old man living there. So I have huge concern whether we're going to get the variance. So I'm just thinking it wasn't just Mr. Barker. It was the guy that actually formed it and had it poured, and the city inspector. I mean, I don't see how we can resolve it without a variance.
That's what we're here to determine.
Okay. Just, I didn't know if you knew there was somebody living in the home. Okay. And we got 2 approvals from the city that this house was a good house. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Barker on this one? What about agenda item number 6, discussion action on front yard setback of 103 Cali Street? Number 7, front yard setback 19.5 instead of 25 at 103. Sorry, number 6 was 103, number 7's 107. Discussion action front yard setback 18.5 instead of 25 at 117 Cali Street.
No.
And then number 9, discussion action front yard setback variance 16.5 instead of 25 foot at 332 Webb Street.
No questions for Mr. Barker.
Last question I have, though. You said Mr. Moit poured the slabs. Mr. Moit was the developer of the subdivision, correct?
Mr. Boyd and his father work. And Adam does concrete work. And that's actually how I come down there. They want to do it inside. made a deal with me to buy the lots and do the slabs. You know, basically a package deal, okay? But there's still, it shouldn't have been missed. But I was looking at this one, I might be wrong, but 332 Cali, number 9, it's not that close. And
332 Webb.
yeah, and also 117, which is item 7. It's not, I was gonna say, those-
Where did we get those numbers? This,
I can see it when you go up.
So the applications were turned in without detailed information. It was just with the application and then the site plans. You see this number right here? This is the number that was used for that. Because that's showing from here to this line is how it was understood for the agenda. So when you get down to more. Again, here's
That one there.
here's the numbers, sorry.
See, that one
right
you're
here.
showing, it violates about 18 feet, but it's only about 4 feet. It's just the very corner, right corner of the garage. It's not,
the shape of the road.
right. So if you look on number 7, you'll have it at 19.5. Well, you know, it's a matter, but it's not violating all the way across, but it is violating still. But the last one, number 9, they're showing 16 feet, but it's a lot less than that too.
Less or more?
It's less.
So again, I think the numbers that were used were these right here.
You're saying this is inaccurate and it's really less than 16 and a half.
That according, when found the pin again, it's on the right-hand side of that fence line. There's an apartment house to the right of this property. But anyhow, it still violate. I'm not saying it's not, but it wasn't as much when it did, they did. But you know, it's still violating. And
Yeah, that's the information that was, yes.
I see how they get it now. I really do. There's a lot more room up front. Between the front.
I mean, for this meeting, we'll use what the engineer or the state licensed surveyor put for us to see. So that's what we'll use for our determination during this.
I understand.
Yeah, we'll use that because Mr. Ralph has a stamp and I don't, so we'll go off of what he said that it is.
I understand. It still violates. I'm not questioning that. But I didn't think it would.
Back to my original question. You said Mr. Moy and his dad developed the subdivision. That's who did the forms. He should know better than anybody what the setbacks were in that subdivision. And the engineered plans for the subdivision specifically state that they will follow all local and city and state requirements. It's stamped on the plans and signed. So it's disappointing for me to hear that, and it's sad for you, but the guy that developed the subdivision doesn't even know the rules or doesn't care for the rules.
It wasn't Wayne. Did Wayne?
No, I'm not speaking of Wayne. I'm speaking of Adam, but his name was on the subdivision as well as one of the developers. That's what you told us. So it's disappointing that there's no regard to the rule when it came to that. And a lesson learned on your part for sure that, you know, those have to be watched and done. And
Like I say, if I'm doing forward, they will be formed, before the forms are set, there will be corners set on there by surveyors going forward. I mean, but that doesn't help now.
yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Barker? I got several other questions for the city. Maybe they can help me wrap my head around some things. Mr. Barker, you're free to sit down. Appreciate you coming up and speaking. Nancy had a question for Robert, so I'll let her readdress that question and let Robert answer it without interrupting this time.
Do you remember the question I asked you a few minutes ago?
No,
Okay, I told you that I was interested to know if there are any penalties, financial penalties, and it's my understanding that planning and zoning cannot grant those. The city council would have to grant them. Am I right so far?
granting a penalty is oxymoronic. So what are you saying? Granting a penalty,
Well,
signing a penalty? Yeah, yeah.
then
Okay, so typically,
make a motion to that fact.
you can make a motion for anything, but I don't think you have the authority to do that. All right, and here's the thing.
Not put a price on it, say the decision to be made, final decision to be made, or decision to be made by the council.
We have to take this thing in aggregate, in totality. Mr. Barker missed some things, Mr. Moit missed some things, the city missed some things. We're all culpable. This is a very unique situation that will never, in my lifetime, going to happen again. The inspector who should have caught it did not. Based upon the inspection, we approved it. They poured, it was wrong. We issued a certificate of occupancy. That was wrong. Because it didn't comply at the time, and we're trying to fix this after the fact. So I am not in favor of charging Mr. Barker anything, because we're all culpable.
I understand that, but as a builder, he should have the ultimate responsibility to ensure that he's following the city rules as stated on the deal. And I understand the city missing it. That's a bad miss, but
Agreed, and that individual doesn't work here anymore. So if that's any consolation,
I was gonna say the city is taking corrective action.
yes, we have a new enforcement, a new process to ensure that this happens as it should, and it did not.
were the original plans submitted to the city
The
for
building
these
plan,
specific housing? And I've asked for them, I couldn't get them, but I know when I built my garage at the house, I had to submit a survey with exactly what I was gonna build, and I had my setbacks on there and everything else. So were plans like that submitted to the city? And if so, what was their setback on those plans?
it should have been 25 feet, but I can't confirm the plan. Yeah, please.
So when we talked to the permit department to ask about that, the files were pulled, and yes, and in the files there was information, but the application said approved to plan number, and don't quote me on this because I don't see it, but it was like plan number 5602, plan number 5607, something like that. There was a couple different plans. And from what I understand, those were the plans that were submitted, but they were Mr. Barker's like only set and was returned to him after the approval. But they were the large sets of plans. And so she did reach out to ask them if they could bring it. They did bring the subdivision plat, but she was specifically asking for the plans that was written on the application approved per plan 5607.
So is that not something we typically keep on file at the city?
Typically, they are on file, they're typically, whenever they go through the approval process, the setbacks, the coverage, that there's, a few first general things you look at to show that they're gonna be, that's the whole point of turning it in, is because you're saying you're gonna prove it to these plans. But unfortunately, when those, again, I can't speak for those people who are in those positions, but if the plans never made it to the permit department, all we have is the permit application saying that it's approved per the plan submitted by Mr. Barker.
Copies.
The copies of the plans, yes.
Yes, please.
So I understand that we don't want to fine Mr. Barker. However, if the city council chooses to issue a fine, can he just pass that on to Adam as both the developer and in his business with Don? He said that
Adam asked Mr. Barker to buy the lots from Adam and do the slabs, an intentional request to do the slabs. Therefore, as the developer knows that he did not request a 25-foot setback, and as a person pouring the slabs knew that there wasn't a 25-foot setback, he's a frequent developer within Smithville. Can that fine be passed on?
I would say ultimately that falls
Penalty.
on the builder.
Yeah, the method or the tool for assigning a fine typically is tied to not pulling a building permit. Okay, he had a building permit. Now, this is new territory. I would have to seek legal counsel to see what could or could not be levied in this particular situation. But as it stands now, he didn't build without a permit. And typically, if you build without a permit, it's 3x the permit cost.
So we don't know who has those plans, whether it's Mr. Parker or Mr. Moit, whoever has the building plans.
They had the full set of each plan, each address, okay? And they had them, but they put it on digital, so didn't have it. So, but I don't know if I even got the plan back. But the city did have a full set of plans. I mean, I brought them in. They were engineered, and I had an engineered slab, everything on it, even though y'all don't require engineered slab. The slabs are engineered. The next group would do it. I always want an engineered slab to not build, even though y'all don't require engineered slab, I did do that.
Mhm.
And so, and I say, only thing I was telling Lay there, going forward, there would be 4 corner set for a plan, but I mean, you know.
But I'm talking about, thank you very much for that, but for the record, for future, for this case, is there somewhere somebody that has the plans that can be, a copy can be given to the city for their files? You said they were put on digital?
You another set of plans, that's not the issue, but I'm saying they have the full set and everything while I turned in.
Who's at the city you're talking about?
Yeah.
I thought the city gave them back to the,
That's what the permit department
The
said.
permit department says-
Received it and
Yeah.
then returned.
Yeah, and
So-
I don't think that.
would it be possible from this point forward to get them a copy for their records, since they don't seem to have them, since said they were returned to the builder?
But I think they have it digital is what they did. They put, I can get you a set plan. That's not an issue. We can have that tomorrow.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Problem. That's why I'm saying I didn't ask for the plans back, but I had a full set of plans for every house. And there was basically 3 plans. Here's what it was. And, you know, so I have them, so that's not an issue. We can have that down here tomorrow. I'm pretty sure, don't we, Frank? Yeah. So that's not an issue. Get that.
Thank you, Ms. Barker.
Feel like I'm gonna beat a dead horse, but City of Smithville Code of Ordinance, Chapter 3, Building Requirements, 3.02.034, violations, penalties, failure to pull permit. That's where you're talking about if they failed to pull a permit, then you do not invoke that provision of the building code.
Sorry, just the opposite. They did pull a permit, and if they had not pulled a permit, then I could do 3.
So to go back, section A of 3.02.034 says any person, firm, corporation, or agent who shall violate a provision of the division or any provision of the building code adopted herein by reference or fail to comply therewith or with any of the requirements thereof, erect, construct, demolish, or move any structure as erected, constructed, moved, or demolished the building, violation of a detailed statement or drawing submitted and approved thereunder shall be guilty of misdemeanor. Section B is if you failed to pull a permit with the city prior to any work being done. So I still feel like section A, again, the developer, Adam, submitted the plans, were approved, no setbacks requested. sold 5 lots to Mr. Barker. Those lots were submitted with the impression that they would be built according to the setbacks. He had no indication from Adam that he wouldn't do that. And yet Adam did it. Nobody caught it. That doesn't mean that because we didn't catch it, there isn't still a component of failure to follow ordinance. And Adam builds in Smithville frequently, should know. It makes me question the other lots in that subdivision, but that's not for us to decide. But that's where I'm coming from in terms of the penalty, and that if that penalty were assigned to Don, he'd have to get a lawyer and then associate it to Adam. But that is where I'm going with this. It is a failure to build within the ordinance, and if we just pass, then it is a free pass without any penalty or fine for doing it. It just goes. Oh, that was a soapbox, wasn't a question. So sorry.
Well, I think that's good conversation for us to hear, and as a group, we hear it and I do have one more question for the city. Have we had any other permitting concerns or any, and I put in here past or present when I was writing my notes down, but seeing that he's not built in Smithville before, so present, have we had any other concerns with that, with permitting or anything with this builder?
Good.
I was just gonna say, I know going forward, all these plans that are in front of us was an in-house, and now there is a third party being used for all future plans. I don't know if that's answering your question, but the process is completely different. It now goes through AOCA, and I think he's actually on some hold up with them right now because there wasn't something provided, and they send it back and say, hey, provide it. So as he had mentioned earlier too, that the process has changed. So but what was your question again? I feel like
Any concerns with permitting or anything on any of these structures that have been built other than the setback rule?
you talking about like fences? Yeah, there was some issues where cease and desist had it with some fences as well. But he did, once enforcement went out there, he did stop building.
Thank you.
And he was penalized. There was a fine attached to that.
Penalties are applied, yes, whenever buildings are happening without permits, yes. 3 times the amount of whatever the permit is.
Yeah, that's who I asked about, so I'd assume that's who she's talking about.
Chairperson Kilgore, I can't answer that question about what legal implications that we can enforce without seeking my legal counsel on this.
And that's understandable. Any questions on this side, comments?
In other words, we can't make, pardon me, we can't handle the variance in one motion and make another motion with a recommendation to the city council.
That's not, I don't believe that's our place to be able to do that. The council can decide that on their own, but,
Well, yeah, but
We're
we
not
can
a-
make a recommendation because we hear everything.
I would think the council would have to make a motion to
I don't know.
have the
I
city
don't know what the law
do
is.
something, but
That's what I want to
Yeah.
know is what the law is. I don't know in my long years with planning and zoning that we've ever recommended.
Well, the code that Chairperson Kilgore referenced, section A, that would be applicable, but I have never seen that enforced, and I would have to do some additional research on that. But tonight, it's to grant the variance or not. It's not
Yeah,
defined.
I think
You
it's
can make a
something we should do
recommendation.
for the future.
so I do have one general comment to make to my colleagues up here. I'm trying to get to my spot in here. So when we have a motion to approve or to a variance, we have to read specifically the variance will not be contrary to public interest, special conditions affecting the applicant's property, because the conditions are literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. Specifically, the second one, there are no special conditions affecting the applicant's property on every, I don't know if you call this the application, the planning and zoning application, it was marked, there are no special conditions affecting these properties. So I don't know how I personally would be able to make a move or to vote on a move that there are special conditions affecting the property when they specifically put on their application that there are not. And that's up for discussion. I think all of us need to discuss it and talk about that. And if nobody has any comments or concerns with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I want to add one more piece of information for commission. Is that the encroachments into the setbacks, there are no utilities in those encroachments. And the structure in and of itself is built to all applicable design codes and standards. I have that documented in a letter that I gave to the title company. And again, this is a very unique situation that everyone is culpable. And I will just put on record, I have a hard time finding someone for this, Mr. Barker anyway, but I will look into it as you requested, because questions come into play. Okay, so it's a misdemeanor. Well, is it 5 times? You did it 5 times, or is it 1 misdemeanor? Who do you give it to? Mr. Barker? Mr. Moy? There's a lot more to this than that I can't answer tonight. But I do want to say we're all culpable. And we need housing, and if we can work this out, that's great. If not, make the recommendation that you need to make to the council.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
So if whoever builds these houses going, the vacant lots, when they have houses built, they will be paying special attention, like measure twice, cut once, measure twice, pour once.
And I think
Future houses, so they may be zigzagged.
specifically the city.
Not for us.
Specifically, there's 12 lots left in there. Well, there's 2 others, which are not mine, but there's 12 lots. And like I say, those lots, I'm engineering the foundation, which I don't require because I don't like doing a house without an engineered slab or something happened. And I'm on the farm, before the farms are set, there'll be corners pinned by a survey company. So we know we will not be violating any setbacks. I mean, it should have been done here. I assumed, I took somebody else's word. I shouldn't have. But that's going forward. That's what I had told the other people are going to do it with me. I told them they will do the forms on every house we do before the form, because even if you do the form check and it's wrong, you have to tear forms down, plumbing, everything, which is a nightmare. So it's just easier to do it on the lot, and you have the corners and you have that. So that's what, so we're doing everything. I'm doing everything right from here, but it just is, he's saying no fine, but I don't know what the fine is. So.
No, and I think personally speaking, and I would hope that the others would agree, is there's not a question about how the houses are built and the quality of the houses and all that. It's just, as Nancy made it feel or sound earlier, it makes it tough on us, right? So we have a job that we're asked to do. We're appointed to the positions. And it just feels like we come in here and we don't have a choice, right? The houses are there now, we don't have a choice. And I think that's why the questions come up multiple times about, is there a penalty or whatever? We don't want this to happen again because it puts us in a tough situation.
I understand. But trust me, I understand.
And also know that the building community talks to each other too, and we want to know that, hey, Smithville wants it to be done right, and we want it to look good and all that as well. So if it just gets out there, they're just going to let it go every time we do it, we just do what we want, that's not good for us either, and it's not good for the community.
And to that point, the processes which failed have been corrected. The houses that he's trying to build now, you must have gone through 8 or 9 iterations of back and forth with the third party. They're catching everything they need to catch. We have a new code enforcement inspector, and we're actually doing virtual, I'm sorry. But we're not going to miss that again.
So on the slab inspections, will those be virtual then? I know that electrical and all that is, so how do they catch that?
It is for now. The building plans are being reviewed in very detailed review, and they have to comply before we will issue the next construction permit. And we will verify, the slab is 12 inches above the crown of the road, 25, all the setbacks, everything that was missed that created the situation will be caught going forward.
Like I said, it was my concern. Then if it's virtual, how do they catch that? They can't put a tape measure down on the ground. They're not there.
That's actually what they'll do. They will measure. And so to that point, this is a temporary process, AOCA. We are going to find a more permanent solution by having an actual building inspector back in-house. But right now, this is what it is until we can find that. And it's not easy, Mr. Barker, is it? You are going through.
What, the last 5 in fact, the house there, we did with the third party inspector, because in between the first 5, even though it was just a week, and the second 5 for a final, we had to do the third party. And what you do is I had 2 people, they have to take it with the cell phone stuff, and they do it, and we measured, test plugs, everything, and went through everything. And right now, what we're doing, we're having a little issue with them on the permit, because we requested more. I think we're gonna see, because they requesting stuff that is not what y'all's code is. And so it's kind of but we're working through it. We're not fighting it or anything. I just want it right. And we're not trying to do it wrong or anything. We're just gonna, a lot of people are saying, well, they don't want to do it. I'm figuring it out. We're gonna figure it out and get it done right, because I don't want the liability anymore. But we are gonna, even though y'all do not require engineer slab, I'm still going to engineer the slab, because I just don't see how you can not, truthfully. So we just got the soil test back on the subdivision, so we could get it engineered per lot. And we haven't received it. They're supposed to have it hopefully tomorrow, and then we'll engineer it. And then that's the last piece that we think we need for the permit. And the main reason is we could draw on forms where the beams are, but if I do the engineered slab and they're in a different spot, it would fail on the inspection. So I don't want to do it, give them that plan, even though they said they would take it, give them that to do it, because I'd rather make sure whatever we're going to form it at, engineered required, in depth and everything, we have it and stuff. So but we're working through it, and we hopefully have it in a couple of weeks done. So, because I want to permit, we permit this, and we're going to permit 4 more immediately and stuff. Just trying to figure it out.
We appreciate you working with the city on that.
I have a follow-up question based on how do we approve or deny if the special conditions were not identified here? Is that an oversight? Where do we?
I'd say it's on there. I guess the only condition that's special at this point in time is that they built across the 25-foot setback line.
Okay. So we can't.
Well, I would interject that the special conditions you become aware during this meeting, there are too many to put on that form. So you can use this meeting as enlightenment to what special conditions do exist.
Okay.
But at the same time, those were all the questions and concerns and conditions that we discussed tonight were all brought forth because something was done against ordinance.
Yeah, I understand the situation you're in. I don't envy this, and it's unfortunate we are where we are. You're right. The message has to be sent that, yeah, you got to follow the rules. And when you don't, there are consequences. I just can't give you clarity at this juncture of what those are.
So I guess, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, for the committee up here, we have the choice to either make a motion to approve a motion to deny or a recommendation. Because everything that we do here is just a recommendation that goes to council and they make the ultimate decision. Or we can go with no recommendation. Is that correct?
I do have a question for Robert.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So if there is a recommendation for approval and you find out later that there are some fines or whatever that could be levied, does the recommendation for approval prevent that? What's your,
Prevent the fine?
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak to that until I speak with council. I wouldn't.
that's a valid point. Okay.
I'll entertain a motion. Any direction that the board decides. The question is asked, for our approval process, the reading of there are special conditions. According to what was checked on the application is that there is not. But Robert says that there are because we discussed multiple things tonight. So I'll leave that to y'all's interpretation and
Another question before recommendations are made. I want to ask whether or not we can make this recommendation. That based on the code, we can't recommend a fine because that's not our place, that's in city council. In order to convey what we want to recommend to city council, can we make a blanket statement? I move that fines be considered in addition to a recommendation to approve the variance?
That's kind of what I was asking at the first.
And that they're not co-determinant based on what you were saying, Phil?
What?
And that they were not co-determinant, fine and approval
Yeah.
have to go together.
They
They're
would be
not
separate.
co-determinant.
They would be separate.
Would it be two motions then?
I think it's all written into one.
Okay.
It had to be
Okay.
written into one because.
And then are we approving or denying or whatever, all five at the same time, or do we have to say them?
No, we'll take them one by one.
I'm not sure I want to go this route.
I did last one.
A lot of writing for Tracy too, depending on how it's worded. Just know it's a recommendation and it's not a guarantee that that would happen too as well.
Well, I would say that I'll go ahead. I'll try to make a motion for this.
If you do make the motion, please cite the reference with section A of the code with which
Okay.
it's going to be a long motion.
Yes, a second. Based on.
Whatever, okay. No. Made joint motion. I will move for the approval to the city council of a variance for a front yard setback 19 feet, 7 inches instead of the 25 feet for 111 Cali Street, M5 subdivision, Block A, Lot 31, property ID 8728789, property owner Don Barker Homes Incorporated.
with the following findings. The variance will not be contrary to public interest. There are several conditions affecting the applicant's property. So I cite this one. However, based on the City of Smithfield Code of Ordinance, Chapter 3, Building Requirements, Article 3.02, Construction Codes, Division 2, subsection 3.02.034. A, any person, firm, corporation, or agent who shall violate a provision of this division. Do I need to read the whole thing? Et cetera, et cetera. And because of the special conditions, literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. And the variance observes the spirit of the ordinance, and substantial justice is done by granting the variance. I second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed, same sign.
So we had four.
Motion passes 4-1. Discussion and action on front yard setback variance 19'6" instead of 25, 103 Cali Street. I'll entertain a motion on that one.
You want me to do the same thing? Huh? You want me to do the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be the pro. Okay. I move for approval to the city council of a variance on a front yard setback variance of 19 feet 6 inches instead of 25 feet for 103 Cali Street, M5 subdivision, block A, lot 27, property ID 8728785, property owner Don Barker Homes Incorporated, with the following findings. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest. There are special conditions affecting the applicant's property, citing City of Smithfield Code of Ordinance, Chapter 3, Building Requirements, Article 3.02, Construction Codes, Division A, Subchapter 3.02.034, A, subsection A, et cetera, as stated previously. And because of the special conditions, literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardships, and the variance observes the spirit of the ordinance, and substantial justice is done by granting the variance.
We've got a motion,
Second that.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Aye. 4-1, motion to recommend the approval for that variance.
Next. Ready for me to go next?
Go for it.
I move for approval to the city council of variance for the front yard setback variance of 19 feet 5 inches instead of 25 feet for 107 Cali Street, M5 subdivision, block A, lot 29, property ID 8728787, property owner Don Barker Homes Incorporated, with the following findings. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest, and there are special conditions affecting the applicant's property, citing City of Smithfield Code Ordinance, Chapter 3, Building Requirements, Article 3.02, Construction Codes, Division 2, Subchapter 3.02.034, subsection A. And because of the special conditions, literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship, and the variance observes the spirit of the ordinance, and substantial justice is done by granting the variance.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Aye. 4-1 approved to recommend.
Next.
Next, item number 8, agenda item number 8 on 117 Cali Street.
I move for approval to the city council of a variance of a front yard setback variance of 18 feet, 5 inches instead of 25 feet for 117 Cali Street. M5 subdivision, Block A, Lot 2, property ID 8728777. Property owner Don Barker Homes with the following findings. The variance will not be contrary to public interest. There are special conditions affecting the applicant's property, citing City of Smithville Code of Ordinance, Chapter 3, Building Requirements, Article 3.02, Construction Codes, Division 2, Subchapter 3.02.034, Subsection A. And because of the special conditions, literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. And the variance observes the spirit of the ordinance, and substantial justice is done by granting the variance.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion to recommend approval for the variance passes 4-1. Item number 9, the 332 Webb Street.
I move for approval to the city council of a variance of a front yard setback variance of 16 feet, 5 inches instead of 25 feet for 332 Webb Street, M5 subdivision, Block C, Lot 25, property ID 8728807, property owner Don Barker Homes Incorporated with the following findings. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest, and there are special conditions affecting the applicant's property, citing City of Smithville Code of Ordinance, Chapter 3, Building Requirements, Article 3.02, Construction Codes, Division 2, Subchapter 3.02.034, Subsection A. And because of the special conditions, literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship, and the variance observes the spirit of this ordinance. And substantial justice is done by granting the variance.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
You got a motion and a second. All in favor, aye. All opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion to recommend approval approved 4-1. That's the last agenda item on the list. Take a motion, accept a motion to adjourn.
So move. So move to adjourn.
I've got a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second? I got a motion and a second to adjourn. That'll close the July 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of Smithville, Texas.
Thank you. Thank you.